Top Game with your host, Sammy Castro. Episode 7. By popular demand, our first NCO guest, Sgt Eric Moreno. No pressure, hermano. Admin note, support the Navy Marine Corps Relief Society, a nonprofit organization dedicated to providing financial and non-financial resources to active duty and retired sailors and Marines and their family members. Last year alone, they gave away $44.8 million in interest-free loans and grants. Disclaimer, the views expressed on Top Game are those of the producers and or the guests appearing on the program and do not reflect the views of the United States Marine Corps or the Department of Defense. Thanks for tuning in.
Nervous?
Oh yeah.
Why?
Well, I was talking to getting gloves. I was like, you saw who was on the lineup before me. I was like, fuck. It's all heavy hitters, especially like in the job field that I'm in right now. And so I don't know.
Is your phone on silent?
It should be. It usually is. Yeah, it is. Don't buy. Do you need it not to like vibrate at all?
It's fine.
I don't care. No one needs to call me anyways right now. We're pretty much doing the changeover. Taking Sergeant Gaskin and Sir took the new LT and Sergeant Adams to go do their driver's license test this morning. That should be it. Because we already did SL3 gear, all that. The weapons from 3.3, all that's been changed over, so.
Okay.
Now it's just packing and cleaning.
All right, so let's get started. Welcome,
Thank you.
Sergeant Eric Moreno, and I am. I'm glad that you've agreed to do this. Partly because I understand that it is somewhat intimidating. I don't know how Sammy Castro would have responded if one of the mass sergeants in my past would have asked me to record an episode or to conduct an interview. Just because of the fact that it's not something that we do easily.
Right.
But also because you understand now that this would be episode 7, the intent and purpose behind it.
Right.
But from day one, this was conceived as a project that would facilitate the communication of ideas, values, beliefs, lessons learned, best practices, TTPs, to the junior Marines, the ones that will replace the guys that I'm primarily interviewing. And at first I was kind of reluctant to the idea of going down the chain of command. As a mass sergeant, I was looking up, what other mass sergeants, the guys that went before me, the retirees, the sergeants major, the master guns, who could I get? Kind of,
Right.
snatching these motivators up and putting them in a confined space with myself and getting down to the structural changes that have to take place inside our brain housing group in order to be successful in this gun club of ours. And when Sam Carter, Master Gunnery Sergeant Select, Sam Carter told me we need to broaden the scope, I was like, okay. How?
Right.
And it was also Scoggins that reiterated what Octavius was saying, which was you need to get the junior Marines on to get a snapshot of where they're at and how we as leaders could better serve them. And so, point taken.
Right.
And here we are. Right. So you're the first.
I'm the guinea pig.
Sergeant, and like I told Gunny Sonnerbin, the canary in the coal mine.
Yeah.
What does that mean to you?
Honestly, it's an honor, so to speak, because I think a lot of the guys, especially in our job field, I know my team we look up to you for what you've been through and what you've seen, and I've taken mentorship to you, whether you realize it or not. I have, and I took it as a huge honor because I saw the lineup before me, all the guys, Gunny Sonneman, now Master Sergeant Select, Master Sergeant Simmons, just Master Sergeant Cross, all heavy hitters. It's a varsity lineup, and then in comes Sergeant Moreno. It's like you should have started with me so you could go up.
I should have been. I should have been first.
Yeah, I should have been first, so it looks like it's on an acceleration. But no, it's just, and when you asked me, immediately I was all about it, and nervous at the same time. But I think this is amazing because when has a sergeant ever been asked his opinion, his thoughts, and actually taken seriously? So
I would say all the time. I would say all the time. In effective environments, I think if you were to peel it back, in any situation where you've got a well-oiled machine, a unit that is locked on,
sure,
that they're appropriately leveraging their NCOs.
Very true.
And for me, I was gifted with the opportunity as a young sergeant to do some things that were outside the norm. My first deployment was to Bolivia, and I had checked into Radio Battalion as a sergeant. Boot, like not fleet returnee or anything like that. I mean, I checked into Rad Bin as a sergeant with a hash mark and 4 ribbons.
At a DLI?
Out of DLI.
Oh, you were that guy.
I was that guy.
You were that guy.
But part of it was because I was a boot camp lance corporal. Mm-hmm. That put me ahead of the curve. Platoon honor man, and all that stuff. So I was, definitely with the yut rah rah mindset. And the fact that I was 23 when I enlisted kind of gave me a leg up, as I'm sure we're going to discuss a little bit later, than the majority of my peers.
Definitely.
And so when I got promoted at Goodfellow to sergeant, a wizened old master sergeant with a belligerently out of regs mustache by the name of Tom Dean summoned me to his office. And me and Kelly Kuduck were both going to be promoted to sergeant together. And she was a fireball, also a boot camp lance corporal, but she was a fleet returnee back at Goodfellow. So we went through DLI together, both boot camp lance corporals. I was a clearance hold, she wasn't. She went on to Radio Battalion, did some cool shit, came back for Mark, and where we met up again, and we both went to got promoted on the same day. And I was in class in the Spanish course, and the staff sergeant walked in. Staff Sergeant Martin walks in. He says, "Hey, you need to go see Top Dean." And I'm like,
what did I do?
The fuck did I do? Right? And, young Corporal Castro, and I knew I was getting promoted the next day or so, and So I go out there, but I first asked the petty officer that was running the class, because back then the Navy and Marine Corps classes were consolidated, and I asked the petty officer. I said, petty officer, Corporal Castro requests permission to go get a haircut. Like, what's wrong with your hair? I said, it was cut 3 days ago. And Top Dean he wants to talk to me. He wants to talk to me. I need a fresh haircut. She's like, you jarheads, and she was just laughing at me. But eventually she conceded and said, yeah, you can go get you a haircut. And so I go get my haircut, and reporting is ordered. Go in and talk to the admin shop and say, hey, he'll be with you in a second. So he brings me in, and I want to say Kelly was with me in the room at the same time. I don't know if he spoke to us separately or simultaneously, but he essentially says this. He says, I don't know you from Adam. And if you're not aware, a sergeant of Marines in the fleet is fire breathing, ass kicking, name taking, ball of fury. And if that's not you, it needs to be. So if you got any cobwebs up in that head of yours, you need to get your mind right, because you're going to be hitting the fleet as a sergeant.
That's intense.
Well, I was somewhat intense.
This has already been discussed, and I messaged you
right.
on that. It's like, Top, you are intense. Let's be honest.
Yeah. So I mean, I say that now. I think then I was like just ready. I was ready. You have to understand that I enlisted in '99. 9/11 took place in 2001. A fight was going on, and I was on the fucking sidelines.
Yeah, you were put on a leash for a while.
Yeah, but I did not drop my pack. I was primed and ready, and fortunately, looking back at it, over the long term, that time together with my wife in Enrique's birth in the first year of his life, without having to deploy. Me and Sonny talked about this.
Yeah, I was remembering that.
It allowed us to establish the norm, the baseline for our family, and how we were, right? Our identity as a family, and when you come together with your wife and your son, and you kind of develop those rhythms, it's important, because when you hit the fleet, and when I did, everything gets disrupted.
Right.
And so you have to know what the baseline is, so that you can get back to that as quick and as fast as humanly possible when you come back from those deployments. And as soon as I got there, it was quick. I showed up. They needed a legitimate sergeant that was going to be able to attach to a Riverine training team that could speak,
yeah.
who could understand the language, but could also, most importantly, just be a sergeant. And on that team, man, I learned so much from the guys that were there with me, because it was outside of the SIGINT realm. We were doing, patrolling classes, comms classes, first aid, machine gunnery from a waterborne platform, engineering stuff. It's my first time to really get involved with the explosives and learn how to blow shit up, and shape charges, and C4 and just like.
So you had the full recruiting poster.
Yeah, and it was my first deployment. And it had nothing to do at all with SIGINT. It was just language, culture, and comms. And so I wasn't expected to be the full package, and it allowed me to learn from, a force recon TL from a Army Master Sergeant, Special Forces, SME. How we go forward, how you get on a flight line and a way to ride out, and kill sheets and EDLs and all the logistics that go into movement, right? We jumped on a C-130 and flew from Camp Lejeune all the way to Bolivia, and it was a 10-man team. It's kind of like we made a joke. It was kind of like a funny remake of Seven Samurai or Magnificent Seven, or one of those crazy movies where you put together this hodgepodge team. Here's the lieutenant colonel was our team OIC. It was a lieutenant colonel, and then we had a captain and this master sergeant, and then these Marine staff NCOs. They had some HEC guys, some O211s and whatnot. But then I had other sergeants around me, a boat mech, a machine gunner, and then some corporals that were O311s, and I learned from all of them in an environment that there was no ego attached to it, and it gave me the chance to really ask questions. And there was a young corporal there, Jesus Gonzalez. He's like, my real name is Jesus, but he said I make all the gringos call me Jesus.
Sounds about right.
Yeah. He was from Texas.
Amen.
And a great dude, and he used to call us Rad Bad. What's going on at Rad Bad today? That's like,
I actually like that.
Yeah, Rad Bad. Yeah.
Hey, I'm gonna take that back to Hawaii.
Yeah, he. But this young Marine had some significant post-traumatic stress symptoms, and it was from there. Never having been on a combat deployment, this is my first deployment. Bear in mind, and this young O311 was with 1-2, and he was in the Battle of Nasiriyah. And if you do any reading or research about the Battle of Nasiriyah, we took some significant casualties, and not all of them were from the enemy. Some of them were fratricide, and that fucked him up. And in some of those quiet moments when it was just a few of us, the ones that had gotten close, and we kind of let our guard down, I started to see some of the uglier side of what combat can do to us firsthand, and it awakened me up to the fact that Top Dean was not fucking around.
Yeah.
Like, this is not the fucking Cub Scouts, and as you're aware, I'm involved in the Boy Scouts of America. Right. One would even say I'm committed, right? Like the chicken and the pig, right? The chicken's involved in breakfast,
right?
But that pig,
he's fully in. That's it.
that pig's committed.
And I appreciate him because
right?
That bacon is good.
So I'm committed to the Boy Scouts of America, but what we do is not the Boy Scouts, and being a sergeant and having that ability to really impact and influence operations is man, it's a great experience, and I don't think there's anything like it. I heard General Kelly tell the Marines at the MSG detachment in Santo Domingo, his favorite rank was when he was a sergeant.
So I've been hearing that. Everyone's been telling me that, and
you don't see it.
No, I do. I'm starting to see it now.
Okay.
I'm starting to see it now.
Wake up to it before it's too late, because when you pick on, I won't say if, when you pin on staff sergeant, you'll miss it.
No, I've definitely. So when I first was pinned on, you did it for me. Thank you for that, for being there. That's everything. Everyone was telling me that. Sergeant's my favorite. Sergeant's my favorite. And I'm like, well, I got it a day ago, so we'll see what happens.
Right.
But that was in November, and we're in March now. So I'm starting to see it now. I'm starting to see. I'm getting more opportunities. Like when we went to the Operation Cobra Gold, LT Burks, our OIC, phenomenal sir. He went to a few meetings with me, and it was like, okay, this is it. This is you. go. And I was happy with that because I had already had life experiences. I was 28 when I enlisted, so I was already old per Marine Corps standards. So now I was finally able to take charge of my guys. Say, hey, we got to be here. We got to do this. We got to do that. Getting paperwork, making sure they got food, making sure we got on the plane, making sure for the air. We're all there. You got all your gear, and it was quick and it was fast paced, and I enjoyed it. I really did because I was able to get away from everything and just lead my guys. It's just me and the boys, and so that was great. Ship wasn't all that great, but
hey,
it's ship like what are you gonna do?
Exactly.
So
it's an experience.
It is an experience, and we got attached to 3-3, so I was able to meet some of the guys, and actually saw one of the guys that I did jiu-jitsu with. He was with S6 on 3-3, so then I had to connect with S6. I needed radios. I was like, hey, boy, what's up?
Right.
So it was good because I was able to see everyone in 3-3, and I met a lot of officers, and I was able to get our name out there as far as what we do and what we can bring to the fight. And so to be a part of that, to spearhead that, and in the meetings that I've been in with you and with higher ups, I'm starting to see it now. Like people are looking at me for opinions and answers and questions, and it's like I actually have answers. Just you let me talk.
Right.
So, and that was one thing when we were with in Thailand. I was grabbing any LT or staff sergeant that would listen to me about SIGINT. I was like, let me talk to your guys. Let me talk to your guys. So, I think it went well. We had a good time out there, and I was able to put Radman out there so that when we get back to Hawaii, I can justify, hey, we need to go train with the grunts. We need to go do this. We need to go do that.
Right. So one of the in those scenarios, one of the things that I've learned from a really awesome Army lieutenant colonel that I was working with previously was be brief, be good, be gone. Right. And that's a very trite way to phrase it. But I will say brevity is the soul of wit. I got that from Major Derry Berry just a couple of hours ago. We were having a discussion about Shakespeare. But the other part is discretion is a better part of valor. And you know, when you're in those situations and you're the face of the OC field, mm-hmm. which you will find yourself in this OC field more times than is customary for sergeants elsewhere in the Marine Corps. You have an obligation, you have a responsibility to be right. Not that you're perfect, but also to know when you don't know the answer to something, to be able to say, hey, you know what, I don't have that information, or I need to ask somebody that specific question, but to actively work to eliminate those holes, those gaps in your game as much as possible. And I'll throw it to you like this. If you know for a fact that your escape from the mount sucks,
you got to get mounted. Yeah.
Then you got to get mounted.
You got to get mounted.
And you know, relax, breathe, and then formulate a plan.
I think anytime me and you've had a discussion about work or about anything in life, it always comes back to, you always relate it to jiu-jitsu, because I think that's the one thing that I can actually visually see, and okay, that makes sense.
Right, and so when you I'll take you one step further. So as you become that staff sergeant, that gunny, that master sergeant, your proficiency in connecting with your subordinates mm-hmm. Is directly related to your ability to tie into what it is that makes that individual tick, and knowing that jiu-jitsu is such a huge part of your lifestyle, your upbringing, your personality, your character. That's what works for you. But if I was talking to another Marine who was all in on video games, well, then that's the avenue that I'm going to take in order to reach them at a molecular level. Right. So, in adopting that mind frame, being like water, so that you can mold to the situation when it presents itself. And I can get in with the gorillas and the chest thumpers on Hanson,
Right.
and I'll even bring my boys to do it with me. But then at the same time, going down to WKO and linking up with the Fumios and the Flavios and those supremely technical, more cerebral perspectives, you've got to be able to do that too. If I took the same approach to rolling with one of these, former high school or college wrestlers out on Hanson that I took with, one of these Japanese Okinawa locals that's a purple belt, it's not gonna be this. I'm not gonna get as much out of it, and having the ability to adjust your language and your message to the target audience starts to get into the realm of where you're not just reacting or engaging with your first response. You're pursuing that masterful approach.
And I that's definitely true. And I've learned that. So being with my team, because within my SIGINT guys, I'm like 5-6 years older than the oldest guy there. So I've had to learn to ask them what makes them tick, like you said, but not in such a direct manner, because they're all about the video games, especially in our Ogfield SIGINT.
And you're gonna get that because those that flavor of nerddom, geekdom, is almost our center of gravity, right?
Yeah, and I didn't understand it because growing up playing so many sports and doing, jiu-jitsu for as long as I have, I just didn't understand it. I played video games as a kid, but I didn't have...
Not to excess,
right. And I didn't do it to the level of these guys. I mean, these guys are phenomenal at it too. Like, I watch them play and it's like just going to town.
Right.
So since this deployment and picking up Sergeant, I've changed in just being with those guys. I've learned from them a lot about how to talk to them.
Right.
The biggest thing is how to talk to them. So, like you said, changing your game, you can't go smash. You can't smash Flavio. He's just you're gonna do some voodoo. He's gonna do some voodoo and you're gonna up an armbar.
Yeah.
So I definitely understand that. And I think that's why that transition for me with jiu-jitsu is much easier to understand.
Yeah. So but you can't always talk in metaphors. Sometimes you got to go to single channel plain text, right?
Right.
And you got to cut to the chase. And the times in which you can hone that is when you're interacting with your peer group across the fleet. Mm-hmm. And so your interaction with a grunt sergeant is probably going to go a lot better for you than it would, one of these the nerdier archetypes in our OC field when he's in charge of that team. And I will be honest with you, a lot of the I guess the calculus that goes in to determine who gets some of these billets from a TL perspective it's predicated on personality types. Mm-hmm. And I was given a team before I knew anything about SIGINT, just based off the fact that I was a sergeant.
Yeah.
And coming off of that Bolivia deployment, I locked up with I lucked out with being the ACM team lead, the Alert Contingency MACTAF, or I've heard people use Air Contingency MACTAF. And essentially we were put on a limited status. You couldn't go outside a certain distance, and your leave was closely scrutinized, understandably, because if something popped off,
you had to go.
You got to roll. And sure enough, I was in church on a Sunday morning, and this is like 2004 time frame, and I got a phone call, said, "Hey, you need to be back at the battalion by 1400 for a brief. You and then Lieutenant Plain." who's now Major Delaplane, changed his name and his rank. That's how gangster he is.
That's pretty
Yeah,
G.
yeah. And who's now probably one of my closest friends, colleagues. That's also an officer. We've been through quite a bit together and had some really heart-to-heart conversations, and I'll always stay in touch with him. He's just one of those guys, and so we go, and then Colonel Greganis is giving us the brief about where we're headed. Port-au-Prince, Haiti. There was an uprising that resulted in the fleeing of the head of state, Aristide, and which later became known as Operation Secure Tomorrow. So at that point in time, sappy plates were hard to come by, and I was directed to go link up with 3-8, Fortuna Favet Fortibus,
Oh yeah.
which is different from 3-3 in their slogan. But I walk into the company office there, and the first person I come across is this big Puerto Rican named Sergeant Burgos. And the first thing he asked me, he's like, "Who the fuck are you?"
Exactly. That's the first thing that anyone said. Who the fuck are you? That's the first thing anytime. Yep.
Right. You know, I'm Radbin.
Who the fuck is Radbin?
You guys fix radios?
You comms? No.
Yeah. And so there's that filling out phase. Marines sniff each other's butts. Like what's this guy got?
Yeah.
What's he bring to the table? Why is he in my space? Why is he in my space? Perfectly, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Why are you in my space? Do you see the sign on the front door? Do not disturb.
We've secured this.
Yeah, and you're gonna walk in anyway. You should have locked it. That would have been the pro move. But and so that jab and counter takes place between he and I. But before you know it, we become the best of friends. Yeah. And when he starts to understand what we bring to the table, then it makes things so much smoother. But you, as a TL, I always felt almost paranoid or a level of anxiety surrounding our ability to actually do what we say we can do.
Definitely.
And until you do that, you're kind of under the gun.
Absolutely. I mean, that was the same thing when we went to Cobra Gold. I was giving briefs on ship, and I could tell some of the squad leaders and the platoon commanders were just looking at me like, this guy's bullshitting. He can't do this.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I've got the gear, and I'm showing them, but I can't turn anything on. Obviously, we're on ship, so they're like, this guy's full of shit. And I could see it. And some of the higher ranking Marines had seen the gear before, so they understood. And then when we actually got out there, gave a class. During the class, same thing. There were lance corporals and corporals just looking at me like, dude, I just did a patrol. Why do I want to come to your comms class?
Right.
Well, one, it's not comms. So finally we showed them, and I was able to interact with those guys by bringing them to the gear. Like, hey, put it on. They were able to, because it was all in class, so wasn't worried about that. Actually able to see it in use. And then once I broke that down, then they were like, oh yeah, are you coming back? When are you coming back? When are you coming back?
Yeah.
And so for me, that was a huge thing for me, because being accepted into an infantry unit from our perspective is huge, because if you're not accepted, you're not going to get requested, you're not going to get to do anything, and then everything just goes downhill from there. So I felt like we were accepted into the unit, into the battalion, but it took us, like you said, the who the fuck are you, and why am I in this class?
Right.
I'm trying to eat my MRE right now. And so we were able to do that, and I think that was, for me as a first time as a TL, newly pinned sergeant, was huge for me in my psyche, in my confidence, in my ability to lead. So that was huge for me personally, and it was a good time to see the guys' eyes light up when they saw, oh, this actually works.
Right.
Yes. request me.
Yeah.
I'll come here. We carry rifles too. We carry sight plates too. We carry our own food because they just see us as nerds. They hear SIGINT.
They see us as nerds, right? Nerd battalion.
And we're in the field, so I had glasses, so I just like was fitting the stereotype. I was pushing up my glasses while I'm talking about a signal. So
one of the things that I had to my benefit when I was a sergeant at Radio Battalion was that I lived off base, off of Piney Green Road. There was a small subdivision on Wolf Run, and in our cul-de-sac lived a first sergeant, a gunny with AAV, two first sergeants married, one retired, one still active duty, a Navy chief corpsman, and then an 0306 burst and bomb gunner by the name of Tom Beecher. Money, right? So Tom made me call him Tom. Our boys, Enrique and his son Jimmy, were thick as thieves. And it was a spoken, understood agreement that all I had to do was show up with a 6-pack of Coors Light, and I could ask him anything I wanted. All things infantry, and he'd been a gunnery sergeant before he got selected to the warrant officer program and the gunner program, and a lot of Marines don't know what a gunner is,
right?
But he's definitely a SME.
I mean, they're almost like unicorns.
They are, and the ability to sit down with that man on his downtime and listen to his perception of SIGINT, of radio battalions, and I think I got the same story out of him about 30 fucking times of a SIGINT support team that attached to his unit that didn't know how to use their 240, and so because they were so reliant upon the arm's distance standoff that they thought that they could just not
sit in the tent.
Yeah,
do SIGINT
not maintain their weapon system. And his point was that those grunts are going to see you as another weapon, another rifleman, another dog in the fight. And if you can't live up to that, then you're useless to them. And you have to see that intelligence is a warfighting function. And if you are not invested in that concept, then you're doing yourself a disservice. You're doing your Marines a disservice, and you're doing my Marines a disservice. And it really kind of reiterated in a different perspective what Top Dean had told me before I even hit the fleet. And so me and Tom Beecher were pretty tight. He he asked me one time. He said, Sam, I need a favor. I'm like, anything, And he says, my boy Ace, his adopted son, is at boot camp right now. I said, I do know that. He said, I just gotten back from deployment. He said, and I want the neighborhood to take a trip down to Paris Island for his graduation. I said, easy day. We could do that. I've never been to Paris Island.
Best coast.
Yeah. I would be inclined to agree with you until you start talking about radio battalions.
Well, I'm in the Pacific, so.
But he says, I'm not done. Hear me out. He says, I want to do it in alphas. I was like, oh man, all right. So we did it.
Yeah, it's just like
I couldn't say no to him. And his son was graduating from boot camp, and so we went down there. So me, so it was Ace, me, the gunny, Jay Haverty, and Tom Beecher, the gunner. All four of us. They took a picture of us right in front of the flag raising Iwo Jima memorial.
But that's sharp though.
Yeah, all four of us, and
Because he's gonna keep that. He's gonna keep that with him.
it's on Facebook.
That's a profile pic.
Yeah, it was for a while there, and you know, it's those moments and those bonds that transcend Ockfield, transcend rank,
Absolutely.
and that really ties into what it is that we do, and what makes this gun club so special. But I got to ask you, what made you join the Marine Corps?
So
You're 28 years old. You got your fucking degree. You're a jiu-jitsu black belt. Why go to the Marines?
how many times have I answered this question? No. I wanted to join military at a young age. Took the ASVAB, did all that in high school. And I never did it, because I was 18 and I knew everything. So
Right.
I was like, and I knew I wanted to go to college. I knew I was going to go to college. And so the counselors kind of steered us away from that, so to speak, in the high school that I went to.
And for the audience, where did you grow up?
Lubbock, Texas.
Lubbock, Texas.
Good old Lubbock, West Texas. So they kind of just, if you were going to go to college, that's what you were going to do. Military wasn't, so to speak, for you, is the way that they presented it, not knowing everything that I could do or what was offered to me. So I wanted to join them. When I got out, I graduated, didn't want to go back to school because I was going to be a physical therapist. I told my parents, I was like, I'm done with school. I'm burnt out. I don't want to do this. If I go, I'm going to quit. I'm going to find a job. So I applied to the Lubbock Police Department, got in with the police department, and then we took exams, and I failed the midterm. First time I failed really anything in my life, and that was devastating. That I had to tell my dad, look him in the eyes. What happened is I failed, and it was just heartbreaking to me. But being in the police academy, I met a lot of guys that were prior military, and the academy was very paramilitary. And I remember thinking on a run, I was like, man, I could have functioned in the military just fine. Should have joined. And then when I resigned, I was like, hey, here's my opportunity. And a good friend of mine, Chris Corona, was a doc for 8 years, Greenside. He kind of guided me a little bit in that process because he had the same situation I was in. He joined when he was 26.
Okay.
So he I didn't have anybody to ask questions about because no one had ever been in my situation that I knew. And so he helped me with that. And I'd always tell myself, if I'm going to do something, I'm going to join the hardest one. I'm going to be the best one.
Right.
So naturally, the Marines. I kind of looked at the Army, but every time I went to go talk to a recruiter, no one was there. Marines were always there, always there. Didn't want to go to the Air Force. My mother wanted me to go to the Air Force, obviously, for obvious reasons.
Why? What do you mean, obvious reasons?
Call it what it is. We call them the chair force.
Because it's safer? Because it's safer?
Yeah, it's safer.
Okay.
It's a business. And don't get me wrong, there are some hard chargers in the Air Force. I've met some locked on dudes, but safer, so to speak. Let's just say that. She saw it as safer because she'd only seen movies, not knowing really anything.
She didn't want her baby on the battlefield.
Yeah, and I am the baby. I'm the youngest. So
okay.
Baby Eric is going to go to the Marines. Mom's losing her shit. So went and talked to a recruiter, and I had to go to the officer side first because I had a degree. I had no idea. Went to the officer side, talked to him, went to a pool function, and I was like, this is what I'm going to do, at least for the next 4 to 5 years of my life. Just kind of fell in love with it. I mean, I think the brotherhood was one of the biggest things because I had that in jiu-jitsu.
They use those tags with you?
They used the tags, but I was like, dude, I'm 28.
Yeah.
I was like, I'm good.
Yeah.
Like, no worries. And I think that was one thing that some of the recruiters understood, that I was already older.
Right.
And I already had been through things in my
What's your degree in?
Exercise sports science.
Exercise sports science.
From Texas Tech University.
You're ready to teach government in high school.
Yeah.
Oh.
Because I wanted to be a physical therapist, and you had to have an undergrad and then go into grad school. But by the time I got out of undergrad, I was like, I'm done with this. I don't want to do this anymore.
So why didn't you just go the commission route?
I didn't get commissioned. They said thanks for playing, but no, I didn't get selected. So I put in my packet.
Did they say why?
No, they didn't say why, but from talking to people, I didn't think I had a good enough PFT score, to be honest.
What was your PFT?
It was like a 276, 280, something like that. And I think the lowest...
First class?
Well, now I know that's first class, but at the time they were saying they were only taking like 290s, and apparently it was real competitive, but it's always competitive to be an officer. But since I got the phone call from Captain Sherrill, and he said, "Hey, you didn't get selected. I'm sorry. I didn't want to make this phone call, but I have to. Do you want to go enlisted?" And I said yes. So
what are you getting now
What's that?
on your PFT?
The last one I had was a 276.
Okay.
So about average, but
You're taking an old man score, though,
I'm taking the old man score. I'm an old man. Still hitting the run, though. Still hitting the run. But yeah, he got me in contacts with the enlisted side, and I just hit the ground running from there. And Captain Sherrill was a great contact for me. He got me connected directly to the enlisted side, and he was more excited about me going to boot camp than I was.
Okay.
So, but I don't regret it at all. There's times.
Well, I think at a certain extent, if you're with the recruiting command, that talent is talent.
Yeah.
Right. And we really haven't had much of a problem with regard to recruitment, just because just something about this gun club and almost the mythical ethos and perception and persona that we have as an organization just attracts high quality men and women.
I agree. And it's like just Master Sergeant Simmons was talking about that. I've seen that same documentary that he was talking about.
Yeah.
I've seen the same one 100 times, and showing my moto right there. But
Belt fed.
a little bit. And I agree with what he says. We're a cult that works,
Yeah.
and to an extent. But I think it was the whole also, instead of the Army offers you all these things, the Marines like, oh, you think you can be a Marine? Can you do this? Are you tough enough? Can you get through this? And I took that as a challenge, and I was like, well, watch me. So I think I took that attitude with it, and even more so being how old I was. I think that I took that a little personal. I had a chip on my shoulder in boot camp a little bit to prove that I did belong here, and I was going to be here, and I'm going to succeed. So that's why I took that into boot camp, and I think that's helped me. I think it's helped me since I've been in as well.
What other options did they give you for MOS?
I didn't allow them to, because I already knew my ASVAB score, and I did research. So I walked in and I told the recruiter I want intel, and I know my ASVAB score, so let's make this happen.
Right.
And I was like, I know your spiel. So he was like, oh yeah, we made phone calls, you're good. I was like, yeah, I know. So just because I knew I wasn't a average recruit coming out of high
tier
school.
one.
Yeah,
Right.
I was definitely tier one right off the bat. I like to think in my mind.
The man who will go where his colors go without asking, who will fight a phantom foe in the jungle and mountain range without counting, and who will suffer and die in the midst of incredible hardship without complaint, is still what he has always been, from imperial Rome to sceptered Britain to democratic America. He is the stuff of which legions are made. His pride is in his colors and his regiment, his training hard and thorough and coldly realistic, to fit him for what he must face in his obediences to his orders. He has been called United States Marine. That's from a T.R. Fehrenbach book called This Kind of War. It's about the Korean War, and it was brought up in conversation recently with Sergeant Major Garcia, and it gets to the point of, are we ready?
Yeah.
Are you ready?
Yes.
Ready for whatever?
Right, let's just go.
Okay. But it's not about you anymore.
Yeah, and and that's where I've had to transition, because as a Lance Corporal, as long as you're squared away, you're good.
Yeah.
You can do whatever you want to do.
Exactly.
And now it's like, okay, yeah, but are your guys good? Have they eaten?
Yeah. So Master Sergeant Thomason brought that up. He was commenting on an inspection that was done, and his point was, it's like, you're good, but your Marines are fucked up.
Yeah, they should be good.
They should
before
be good.
you,
right?
Exactly.
So at a certain point in time, it's not about your PFT anymore. It's about what your average is for your section, your team, your platoon,
And that kind of comes with the whole leaders eat last type of mentality. It's not that just doesn't start with and end with chow. It's everything with the job, everything. So I've taken that upon myself more seriously since we've been here, because it has been, are the guys good? Not just are they good, do they have everything that they need? Do they have the correct uniforms? Do they have all the gear? Do they have the food? Do they have all that?
Careful now, you're starting to sound like Major Farina. You never even met the guy.
No, but I've heard a lot about him. I do want to meet him now.
Yeah, he just recently retired, and quite a few guys from the community were there to see him off. Really solid dude, and he will be sorely missed, but I think he'll be around in some shape, form, or fashion. Always, yeah. So kind of changing things up a little bit. What do you do on a daily basis to kind of find a balance, right? Because all in all the time,
right?
I get that, but
right.
But you can't be all in all the time, because it starts to come off the rails.
Are you talking about with the job?
Yeah,
definitely. Jiu-jitsu, that is definitely my. Matt Serra has a quote. He says, "It's my passion, it's my therapy, it's my life," and I found that at a young age. So at times it'd be hard for me to express myself with words or to say what I wanted to say, but I could do it in a physical manner with jiu-jitsu, and that was always a release for me. And that was the balance that I found in my life, was to go out and train with anyone really, and just have that release. And that's what always, I guess, kept me on an even keel. My sanctuary, my home away from home, so to speak, because I live in that mat room on Hanson. So if I'm not at work, I'm there in the mat room, either hitting the bag or on the mats doing jiu-jitsu. It just it allows me not to think about work, whatever's going on, whatever personal problems I have, and just be in that moment and the human chess match that is jiu-jitsu, and figure out this guy's game. Or does he have a heavy base? Does he have a good sweeps? Does he like collar chokes? Does he like arm bars? And it's just that moment for that hour, 2 hours, nothing else matters but jiu-jitsu. And it's a beautiful art. I mean,
Yeah.
So
yeah. So my first jiu-jitsu class was back like in 2001 in Monterey. So I was doing a lot of boxing. They'd started a boxing club there in Monterey while I was away in training. Several of us would go out there and early in the morning, like 05, get our road work in, jump rope, and then drills, and then sparring. And then I was not in class, so then we'd PT at lunch. And then for the evening, we didn't have any kids. It was just Liz and I. Mm-hmm. So I would go out, and we started taking, me and another guy, JC McKenzie, started taking Jeet Kune Do and on certain days, and then jiu-jitsu on other days. So this is when I first learned how to shrimp and how to upa and all that. But 9/11 kicked off, and so I stopped. And the very next time I was able to get onto the mats was in that type of formal environment, was in the Dominican Republic. Yeah, but training in different locations and different countries under different instructors, it's highlighted to me that there's a spectrum, right?
Definitely, there's levels. There's that, but there's also practitioners that can't teach as effectively as others. Absolutely. So
let me ask you, from the perspective of a black belt that's been training for how many years now?
10 plus. I don't even, because I would take time off in high school to play football. And then I had, because in Texas you play football.
Yeah.
That's what you do. So I'd take time off, and then I actually had a hairline fracture in my femur, so I was out for about 2 years. So I would say 12 years total.
Okay.
Everything combined.
So when you first go to an academy, a school, a dojo, a gym, what do you look for in your mind to assess if this is someplace that you want to train? Or does it doesn't matter? Now, I mean, when you're a black belt, you go anywhere. but when it comes to giving a recommendation to someone,
Okay. I look at the leadership. I look at the black belt that's running the class, or the brown belt, whoever may be running the class. How he interacts with me is huge to me, because I've been in academies where I get welcomed in. It's like, oh yeah, great, let's train. And I've been in academies where it's like, who the fuck are you? And I get tested. You know, I'm either gonna roll with one of their black belts or their top brown belt. The top guy that's there, that's who you're gonna roll with. And I think it's how I'm treated from that point on is whether I give a recommendation or not to train there, or whether I want to train there myself. Because I've been in hostile environments in jiu-jitsu academies, and I've been in welcoming environments. You can have that hostile environment, but it's got to be a controlled environment. It can't just a bunch of gorillas just jumping on each other, trying to break each other's arms. Because I've been in academies like that. So that's not a conducive environment to learn and to grow. You can have that controlled force on the mat, but it's got to be controlled. You gotta have that black belt professor, leader, whatever you want to call him. He has to be able to control the academy, and that's the first thing I look for. Is how does he present himself? How does he control himself? How does he do that? And then, because usually, to quote, remember the Titans, attitude reflects leadership, and it's true. That's the first thing I look for is when I go into academy. And the mats are huge to me because I've been on some terrible mats.
Okay, so what do you mean by that specifically?
Just
the condition of them.
The condition of the mat. It's like, I don't think they've mopped this in a year. You know, that kind of stuff. And because there's high quality mats and there's low quality mats. Like anything, you pay for quality. And how the mat's set up is kind of a thing to me, because if you don't take care of this mat, are you taking care of your jiu-jitsu?
Okay. It's funny you say that. I'll circle. I'm gonna write down this word, and I'm gonna. I'll come back to it. But your point stands. So this isn't a plug. I'm not sponsored by Fuji, but I recently bought some Fuji mats.
Oh, those are great.
And it's the roll up kind. They come in 2 5x10 strips. Mm-hmm. And I can roll them up or lay them out as I see fit. And it's where, Liz will work out on them. The boys and I will roll on them. I'll use it for swinging kettlebells and whatnot.
Is that how you convinced Liz to let you buy it?
No, well, I actually just bought them without really. I mean, I Jedi mind tricked her. It's like, yeah, we talked about this. I hope she doesn't listen to all these podcasts, so maybe she doesn't.
She's going to listen to this one.
She'll listen to this one, probably, yeah. That'll be my luck. But, overall, I think I paid shipping, handling, tax title license. It was like $500-600 for a 10x10 spot for me and my boys to train on at home, because I wanted to have something where I could throw on my home theater PC,
right?
Some videos that I may have acquired, and train and learn and practice stuff, and I tell you, it's been great, because like I was going through, who was it? It was Hinzo's online academy, mm-hmm. Gayer, and he was working on arm triangles, Garagatame, and some other triangles, arm triangles, and chokes with Vicente, and then we drilled it like on a it must have been on a Monday or a Tuesday when we don't normally get to class, and then right before we went to class, either on a Thursday or a Saturday, we worked on it real quick, and I said, I told him, I said, if you can nail one of these, I'll make it worth your while. And he starts negotiating with me. He's like, a Steam gift card, because they're huge PC gamers, right? And I said, well, we'll see. We'll talk about it.
Which one was this?
Vicente.
Vicente. Oh, he's going to take you for everything.
Yeah. And so sure enough, we get to the mats, and they go through the drills and warm ups. And he comes back for his water, and he said, arm triangle, right? I said, yep. And so sure enough, like he's thinking about it. So we get out to the mats, and I circle around in the area at WKO where you can get a little bit closer to the action, so I can watch and see, because I learn a lot watching the kids roll, because they're I'm about as coordinated as they are. But so he links up with this older, bigger kid, and I'm thinking, there's no way he's gonna sink it in on this guy. He shoots for a single leg, takes him down. Inside, I'm screaming Valhalla, right? And he gets into side control, stabilizes himself, and then slowly but surely starts to work his magic, and he locks an arm triangle in, and the kid taps, and when he sits up, the kid's like that wasn't a submission, was it? And Vicente's like, you tapped, didn't you?
It worked.
Yeah. But I think the kid was in his own way was saying that they didn't teach us that.
Right.
And
so it doesn't count.
It doesn't count. Or what was that? But Vicente's like, he looks at me. He gives me a thumbs up. It's like yeah, I'll take my payment in Steam credits later. But and for me on the sidelines, I'm seeing that, I'm just like, yeah, that's an instance where the money for the mats was money well spent. But more than anything, the reason why I've enjoyed my time on the ground with the boys is because it's that one-on-one interaction with them.
Definitely.
And rolling with Enrique, and when I taught the boys chess, I never let them win. And when I roll with them in jiu-jitsu, I never let them win. And the reason is because when they do finally, submit, Dad, it'll be worth it. And it happened recently.
Really?
Somewhat recently. And you were there. I don't know if you caught it or not, but Enrique locked me up in an armbar. And he screamed out, yes! here on Hanson, and the other Marines are like looking around. And I was like, hey, you're not supposed to do that.
Be humble.
Yeah, but it was one of those moments that he'll never forget.
Yeah.
And it hasn't happened since. It didn't happen before.
But you can't do it again.
Yeah, exactly. But it's funny because Flavio has spoken to me about always rolling with Enrique. Like, let him roll with other people. You can roll with somebody else. You come roll with me. That kind of thing. And I get that, but I got mats at home. So I roll with him whenever I want, right?
And I think that's awesome. Like, and you seeing you with your boys, I was like, I've told friends, I was like, man, I think that's crucial to their development as young men, is to be in that fire, so to speak. That is jiu-jitsu, and to those who don't understand what I mean by that, just train and you'll understand. Yeah.
And I'm not doing it any longer. I pulled back because I've got to let the staff sergeants lead. I've got to let the gunnies take ownership. I've got to let the corporals, kind of grow and learn. But for a while there, I had little tribe of Lance corporals, and I'd take them to the mat room Monday through Friday. I might skip maybe a Thursday or whatnot, because I was still training on Hanson and at WKO, but it gave me a lot of ground time with the Marines who had never been exposed to it before, and a lot of them didn't like it. They did not like it because it sucks.
It's another world.
Yeah, when you've got a grizzled old master sergeant on top of you, knee on belly, and he's just a white belt, but you see some stripes on there, and it was very uncomfortable for them. But that was my point. Was It's okay to be uncomfortable. It's good.
It's good.
It's good. And for a few of them, they figured it out, and I'd bring them up. I brought them up to Hanson a couple of times.
I've trained with a few of them
to expose them to some tough love.
Yeah, definitely.
And I took a couple of them with me to WKO so they could see that style of game, because it's different, right? I mean, all Novo Uniao, but different styles, different perspectives, different builds, different levels of fitness and intensity. But showing them those different aspects, I think was productive. Because for me, I wish I would have had more of that coming up, and even I've picked up some strap hangers that were like, man, your unit, y'all shop trains jiu-jitsu every morning. That's awesome. I wish we could do that, but it's not for everybody. I get that, but I think everybody should at least try it.
Definitely.
Just from the perspective of understanding how vulnerable you are really, right? And that in and of itself is worth its weight in gold, because I've seen a lot of dudes with a lot of bluster and bravado get their asses handed to them.
Oh yeah.
And by little dudes, old dudes, and it kind of drives home the point that we're all human. Definitely. We all have our limitations, and you can work to effectively eliminate some of those gaps, but there's a lot of parallels between that and what we do in uniform. And so part of my approach to training in jiu-jitsu has informed my approach to my professional development, my continued professional development, even as a master sergeant. Because I will tell you that as much as you may think that a master sergeant could be the complete package, none of us are.
Right.
We're all still learning. And if you're not still learning as a master sergeant, or as a master guns even, sergeant major, first sergeant, you're fucking wrong. This game moves so fast. And one of the key tenets that was communicated to us at the Marine Corps Warfighting Labs Innovation Symposium was from the Commandant himself, and he said, disrupt yourselves or prepare to be disrupted by your adversary. And that's
intense. That's right to it.
Right. So I mean, that you can apply that on the ground. You can apply that to just whole Marine Corps concept,
Right.
whole Marine concept perspective, or just in MOS credibility. Mm-hmm. And so we take different paths to get to the same point, but not all master sergeants are alike. They don't all have the same experiences, strengths, weaknesses. But as a sergeant, you start to develop along a certain path. And whether you stick around this gun club or not, your choices now will inform the individual you become. And if that's in uniform or out of uniform, that still holds true. Do you understand that?
Yeah, definitely.
So what are you doing with that understanding? How are you developing yourself? I mean, I'm sure you know where your holes are on the ground game.
Definitely.
But where are your holes in the arc field, and what are you working on in order to address that proactively?
So a lot of times, what I try to do is, if I task one of the guys with something, whether it be an SL3 or op checking or anything like that, I try to show up, go with them for at least the better part of it and get back on it, because it's been, as a TL, you're in meetings, you're talking to people, and you're talking, and you're talking. So I'm having to reinsert myself into the tent, so to speak, onto the gear. And one big thing that I did while I was here is, I don't know if this would be considered outfield, but I would say as a whole Marine, I got a lot better at swimming while I was here.
Okay.
I barely passed the swim qual at boot camp. I was the guy that was swimming on his back. And so LT Burks was like, Moreno, we're going to the pool. All right. But I would tell him, I was like, we're going to the pool, but we also have jiu-jitsu tonight, sir. Just to throw that out there.
Just throw that out there.
And it was
to level the playing field.
To level the playing field, exactly. But it was like either disrupt your surroundings or prepare to be disrupted. And when I jumped in the pool, oh man, I'd freak out. I couldn't, because I couldn't stand. I couldn't. But the more I did it, now I want to go to the pool.
Okay.
So it's things like that's what I tried to do.
I'll be sure to pass that message to Master Sergeant Select Sonovan.
See, I didn't say our people. I just said on my own. I'm sure he'll find out. I'm sure LT Burks will tell him anyways.
Yeah.
I won't have a choice. He'll probably call me, tell me to go to the pool, but I just don't want to do any brick.
So I recently heard a Master Gunnery Sergeant say out loud that where we started to lose our edge was when we changed our boots.
Talking about from like the black leather to the suede?
Yeah. So when I came in, we had the black leather and pretty much every night.
The shine.
Yeah. You had to put some TLC on your Cadillacs. And I don't know if I agree with him. I think that I mean, there's some validity to that in that, attention to detail. But I think that I would rather have my Marines doing something more productive with that time. Not that they couldn't listen to a podcast, right? Get some Top Game in their life.
I was getting inked up and I was listening to your podcast.
Right. Or watch a documentary, or maybe they got a subscription to Great Courses Plus, and they're looking at, this Harvard professor talk about cybersecurity or something along those lines while they're shining their boots. I think you can still make that time could be, spent productively, but I don't know if it's as simple as that we change our boots and then everything goes to shit.
Right.
I think we're a much more complex organization than that. But and I know that you never had to shine boots for an inspection, but
I shine my boots before I go out.
Right.
So
right. Okay.
That's an inspection.
Okay.
To me.
All right.
Because if I'm you gotta look good. So before I go out, you gotta shine up the cowboy boots.
I guess maybe asking a vaquero from Lubbock that question would be ill advised. But yeah, okay. I see your point. Look good, you feel good, you perform well. But there seems to be here in 2018 a generational divide, and I've heard a lot of my peers almost in a condescending fashion state that the millennials are disrupting the organization. And one of the main reasons why I wanted to do the podcast is because I know that this generation of Marines gets their information differently than mine. I mean, you guys are LinkedIn, you're Facebooked, you're Snapchatting, you're WhatsApping, the list goes on, and how you all get your information. And for most of my peers, it's completely outside their worldview. And in these long form conversations with my peers and now with with the junior Marines, recorded and then pushed out through on the internet, I think is going to have a broader reach than I could ever have anticipated. But what would you like to see out of the older Marines in order to better, I guess, facilitate the passing of the torch?
I think this is a step in the right direction. This right here, this podcast, because to see the lineup that you had before and to see these guys open up and show that they're not just Master Sergeant Simmons, they're not just Master Sergeant Cross, not just Gunny Sotomayor. I think that shows that they are human, like you said, and that's why I was so for this podcast when you told me about the idea, is because this is a way to get it out to the younger Marines, and it's a way for them to listen to it, like in their room or on a bike, or just, it's something that it can be almost personal and intimate, because you throw on your headphones and it's just you and the podcast. Now, as far as that's kind of a hard question to ask, because I feel like I am a little bit older than the junior Marines, but
so you kind of got one foot on,
yeah, I'm
on
kind of
either
like,
side.
Exactly, because I kind of grew up, I would say, old school, the way my father was, but then also I've had all this technology and I've had all these other things, the opportunity to use. So I think it's for the passing of the torch, I think it takes both of us. I think it takes the junior Marines, the younger guys, realizing that the older Marines have life experiences and they should listen to that. And I think it takes the older Marines to realize that the younger guys got some new and improved gear and some technology that will help us further. So I think it's both ends. I don't think it's just one end in itself. I think because if you do that, then one side is saying the right and the other side is completely wrong. My opinion.
Okay. So how do you get your information?
How do I get mine? A lot of times, iPhone, but I use the news app, or
Really?
I'll just go online, look at different news websites. It's really hard because every time I go to a website, I can see the bias in each side. CNN, Fox, anyone is gonna have their bias. So sometimes I'll go to a BBC, something like that, a world view, trying to get the entire aspect of what's going on, because I need to be in the know. I need to be in the know.
Yeah, it can make it tough right now with the way that the media is so polarized.
Definitely.
And so to get down to the ground truth can be somewhat difficult. You have to take a broad approach to the information, as far as gathering it up and having an informed perspective of current events and the things that are taking place in the world around us. One of the I guess byproducts of my opportunity as a young corporal to take a class at Naval Postgraduate School was that I was introduced to strategic forecasting at a very young age. Relatively speaking, in my time in uniform. And Stratfor's it's kind of like an intelligence analysis corporation. It's a private firm, and they're based out of Austin, Texas. And a lot of their products are kind of aside from the politics, and they look at it from a very objective, strategic perspective, and the writings are not necessarily slanted, but worth looking into. It's somewhat expensive.
Okay.
It's like $40 a month, but I would recommend that as an option when you're looking for something outside of the
The norm.
The norm. and you want to get down into the to the grit of a region, a problem set, an issue, relationships between nations, states.
Yeah, because you could see one article on CNN, one article on Fox, it'd be the same one, but one will totally two different ideas,
Right.
Or what they're presenting, and I think that's how do I say? That's terrible because it's almost they present what they want to present to you,
Yeah.
and pushing the idea, whatever news network it may be, and it just feeds into what you're already thinking.
Right. So it's funny because recently Enrique has taken a shine to philosophy. And,
I wonder where he gets that from.
Yeah. So he asked me, he said, "Dad, why did you major in philosophy?" And I was like, "Because I didn't know any better." Was my first answer, but I kind of, I use humor a lot to kind of deflect things. But when we really started talking about it, he's like, no, he didn't let me off the hook. He was like, I got your leg. I'm going to take you to the ground on this.
Too, yeah.
So we started talking about it, and I said, a lot of it was because I felt like I didn't know what I wanted to study, but I did know that I needed to get stronger in my ability to critically analyze the world around me. And that's philosophy. And one of the paths of that conversation, which is now kind of taken place over the course of weeks, since he's been cracking open those books and going through my own personal library. And I noticed like my Book of Five Rings is in his room, and my Art of War is in his room, and my Thucydides is in his room, and he's reading some of my classics that I've had for years. This is my 16-year-old Boy Scout, and we got into the subject of moral relativism. Is there a hard good and evil, bad and good, truth and fallacy? And we're having those conversations. Is there a single truth? And
A 16-year-old.
A 16-year-old, yeah. And so we talked about the concern that can start to present itself when you say that what I believe is right for me, and what you believe is right for you. But then there's a cognitive dissonance that starts to take place when you try to marry that up. So if it's okay for him to do that, but it's not okay for me to do that, why can't I just adopt that mindset? And now it's okay for me too. And all of that goes into being a father and showing him that there is evil out there, and there is good, and it's going to be up to you to determine how you interact with that, with those influences, and a lot of it I push back to him, and when he starts asking me questions, to apply the Socratic method and start asking him questions, so to get him thinking and to understand the fact that your father does not have all the answers. I've read, I've learned, I've made mistakes, bounced back from it, making new mistakes, but no one has it all figured out. Yeah. And you have to be okay with that. But there's nothing that's preventing you from searching on your own for that truth. And one of the funny things about it is I can kind of always take it back with him to jiu-jitsu. Like there's a ground truth.
Oh.
There's a ground truth. Some shit just doesn't work.
Yeah.
And you could look at all the videos on YouTube of the Berimbolo or the De La Hiva, but until you can actually apply it yourself in a live environment that's not scripted for the GoPro,
camera, yeah.
for the GoPro, is it true? Is it valid? Does it hold up under scrutiny, under pressure, real pressure?
Right.
Not just you know, I'll let you get me here, and then we do this, and then we do that, and so in that way, the verbal sparring leads into the physical sparring that we get into. But the point that I try to make with him is that you have to constantly be improving.
Definitely.
In all facets of your life, and to aspire to that excellence. There's nothing wrong with doing your best. And you know, Sonny touched on this quite a bit, that it's okay to be motivated, to be hardcore, to be good at your job.
Right.
And a lot of people, a lot of the not a lot of people, but a lot of the younger Marines I've seen over the years, and he made the reference to the Terminal Lance generation, that, you know, it's not cool to be moat.
It's cool to have the low fade,
right?
Throw up the Lance Corporal symbol, and I get it, and I understand that, and I think it's because we have so much access to other things, and it's not so clear and cut anymore for a lot of the younger guys.
Yeah,
and because a lot of them have. So your son's 16, he has access to all these information, all these books, and I think because of the younger Marines have that access, that they question more.
As they should.
And yeah, exactly. But I think they question it, but it's to the point where they're questioning just a question or just to rebel. And I've asked guys, why'd you join? Like, what do you mean? You're acting like this. Why'd you join? You know we're gonna have to get haircuts. You know we have to shave. You know these basic rudimentary things that are gonna happen. That I don't understand why you're here. And I try to bring them back to why they joined in the first place, so that they can remember that. And even if you just do 4 years and get out, that's great, man. You did your part. You did your service. And I applaud you, and I'll shake your hand, and I'll buy you a beer for that, because that's awesome. You did more than what 90% of the 99%, because we're the 1% club.
Right.
More than 99% of the U.S. population. So, yeah, it's an interesting dynamic to see the younger Marines, especially with that Terminal Lance generation, to see them kind of push back. But
so you don't consider yourself part of that subsection of the population?
I don't think so, because
you're drinking the Kool-Aid.
I drink a little bit. I drink a little bit of the Kool-Aid. I'm not even gonna lie. Some of the guys, I try to hide it sometimes, but it just comes out.
Why? Why hide it?
I don't know. I think it's because I'm around them so much. That's my peer group, and so and then it comes out like during the PT session, or I don't know. It just randomly, and so they know. They're like, Moreno's, he's moto. They know. My guys know, because I mean, Oberon, my radio RTO, he's giving me a joke. He's like, yeah, Moreno loves getting haircuts, because every week, and I'm like, hey, where's your haircut at? Did you get one? And he's like, no, I'm gonna go. And but I got haircuts every week as a civilian, because it's like, you look good, you feel good, you play good.
Right.
And so I think that I try to take that to my younger guys, and it's seen as moto, and partly is I do enjoy getting a haircut. You know, go in the chop shop or fade in Hawaii, get a fresh fade, feels good. But it's an interesting dynamic, being the age that I am and the rank that I am with these younger guys and living in the barracks. I'm having to learn how to balance that and tell them that I do care about them tremendously. I had one of my guys come and ask me questions about applying to college. So I think I have gotten that across to them, that I do care about them. I've had guys ask me how to, about their finances, about their bank accounts, and about how to tie a tie, how to iron a shirt. So these basic things that I've done, to me, that seem like everyone should know how to do.
Right.
But they're 19, 20, 21, coming straight into boot camp. They don't know that. They take their uniform to the dry cleaner and they press it for them.
Right.
So I'm trying to show them that yes, I am older, but I'm still younger too. I'm still trying to hang with these young cats, because getting older, body's getting older, and I think when I bring them into the mat room, they see that as well. They see me open up a little bit more, because a lot of guys, I don't know, I'm trying to see how to say this. Sometimes I come off intense as well, I guess, so to speak. And I don't think I am. I think I'm a very approachable person.
Yeah.
But I've been told that I'm not. And so I've tried to work on that. And I try to show the guys that I am approachable. And I do that with jiu-jitsu, and I do that with other things. Like, I go in and try to listen or watch the games that they play just to see, because I don't understand it.
Right.
I don't understand what is the one they play. I can't even think of it. There was World of Warcraft. There's another one where they have like lanes, and guys get paid to play this game.
Dota?
What is Dota?
League of Legends?
League of Legends, that one.
League of Legends.
I have no idea what that is.
So I'll explain it to you. So,
no, it's been explained to me. It was in depth explained to me in the barracks, because I was like,
so allow me.
Okay, open this one up.
All right, so League of Legends and Dota are both based off of. It was initially a modification of a real-time strategy game. I think it started off with StarCraft, and then later it was Warcraft, not World of Warcraft. And it was just a map with a bunch of custom scripts that they had put into this game. Mm-hmm. And instead of you controlling an entire army, you just controlled one character. And it wasn't just you playing, it was now 10 of you on 2 teams, 5 each. And what really kind of sparked the popularity was that there were so many different characters you can play, over 100, that were each unique. And so in the composition of those teams dictated how things would play out when they were in a rumble, right? Mm. So like, say you got instead of one-on-one jiu-jitsu matches, it was going to be 5-on-5. Right?
I'd do that.
Right? You would.
I would do that.
Right? So this is a virtual aspect of that, or interpretation of that. And so if just looking at the Nova União team, the guys that we've trained with here, and you could, if I told you you could pick one brown belt, one black belt, 2 purple belts, and a white belt, who would you grab?
Out of the team right now? Out
of the team, right? Or anybody that's trained with us here in Nova União. You can call them out by name.
Well, I'm the black belt.
Okay.
Let's just get that out there.
Okay, so you're the carry.
I'm the carry.
Right.
Okay.
So we'll circle back to that later. So you're the carry.
It's kind of hard to pick between Wayne and Greg for the brown belt.
Okay. John's crying somewhere.
It's because he left. That's why I haven't trained with him a lot. It's because he does De La Hiva on me all the time. Oh, man. See, now you brought up John. I can't even. Shit. I don't know between those three.
So when you're doing the draft,
right,
in a paid, tournament where
is there like a time limit?
Yeah, there's a time limit for your draft. So first off, you start off with the bands. Uh-huh. So if I know that you've got a high skill ceiling with a particular character, I'm gonna ban that character first. So you can't even pick that dude. And then,
so there's all kinds of strategy involved.
Yes.
In this. So this is making much more sense to me. This is more.
That's why I said
this cerebral.
Right.
Cerebral.
Right.
Okay.
Exactly. So just the band pick phase alone is the draft, is what they call it. The draft phase alone is the game being played from the get-go, and then from there taking what the draft provided you as a team, then you determine who plays what character. So, and then those characters have different roles based upon how they develop through the course of the game. Because everybody starts off at level 1 and they go up to level 25, right? So Reno's you carry.
Okay, brown belt. Just we go with John.
Okay, we'll go with John. Just because you forgot him first.
Yeah,
you
it's
feel
pretty
good.
much.
Okay, so now you got 2 purple belts.
2 purple belts.
Yeah.
We didn't have many purple belts come through this.
So for me, I would say Mac and Brett.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah. Because they're
Brett's
just
got to have
causes.
he's got to have his beard though. If he doesn't have his beard, he can't be on the team.
Okay. So now you get 1 white belt.
1 white belt. Okay. They've got the blue belt already.
No, I didn't give you. I gave you 2 purple belts.
No, I'm saying like the guys that we're thinking about.
Yeah, it has to be somebody that doesn't have a blue belt.
Well, let's roll top.
Okay, so you get top Castro. All right, so
You wrote top, did you?
Yep, I wrote top. So in this scenario, John would be your maybe your semi carry because he's your brown belt. Mac and Brett would be your cores, and I would be hardcore support. So we call position 5. So they have position 1 would be Reno, position 2 would be John. He might be your mid, and I'll get into that later. And positions 3 and 4 would be Mac and Brett. So, and then position 5 would be me. So it's my job to bring all the gear. So I would buy the courier. I would buy the wards, which is basically like your UAS, your unmanned aerial surveillance. So we could have vision and basically I'm support. I'm intel.
Yeah, I was like, well.
Yeah, and I'm also supply, right? Logistics. You need something done, I'll come in and I'll assist. But there's 2 bases, and there's 3 lanes to get to those bases. And the first team to destroy the other person's base wins. Along the 3 lanes, there's mid, top, and bottom. It's normally played out that you would have in the laning phase, which is like the first 15 minutes of a game, would be 2 at the top, 1 in the mid, 2 on the bottom. Depending on which side of the map that you're on, the top or the bottom could be safe. Okay. Because of the way that the lines are drawn. So your carry might go if you're playing on the let's just say on the good side, right? Mm-hmm. Dire versus Legion. Say you're Legion, the safe lane for you would be on the bottom. So the number 1 position guy, the carry, would go with his support, which would be me. So it's you and me. And my job is to make sure that you're getting as much money and experience as possible by killing the creatures that are fighting out the battle. Because if none of us do anything, we just kind of sit in our base, there's going to be little army dudes that are gonna fight, and they'll interact and kill each other. But if you're there in the middle of it and you get the last hit of every single one of those creatures, you get money and you get experience, and you use that money and that experience to get powered up, right? But how that happens in real time can be so fluid and so dynamic that you'll never play the same game twice. And that's how it captures the imagination of your Marines, is because they're constantly having to process the information that's being presented to them and then engage with it and outthink their opponent. It's a very dynamic and skill intensive game, and the ceiling for the skill is out of control. And when you first start playing, you get the shit kicked out of you.
It's your first day jiu-jitsu.
It's beyond that. I mean, you can't even crawl, and you're trying to roll.
Oh,
right?
That sounds terrible.
Exactly, and so that's why because the game that I was really talking about was Dota, which was like the initial game, but League of Legends is kind of like a more beginner friendly version of Dota, and these games are making millions of dollars, and they're free to play.
I guess I'm gonna have to look at that more because I'll walk in the room like, what are y'all doing playing League of Legends? I'm like, nerds.
Yeah.
And I walk out of the room.
What they're doing is it's a live action multiplayer tactical decision game.
I could definitely see how, especially in our outfield, how the guys would be gravitate and hold on to it.
And when you start to get into the mechanics of each individual hero and what they bring to the table, it gets infinitely more complex.
That's like when you choose out I'm always bringing it back to jiu-jitsu because that's like when you pick out the right gi,
right?
Because of the fabric, because of the collar, because of the cut.
So in that scenario, if we were going to do a 5-on-5 jiu-jitsu match, right? How would that play out? So you being a black belt, we want to pitch you up against maybe one of their brown belts, so you could eliminate him quickly
right away.
And then, I might tie up their black belt in a way that is not going to put me at danger, because maybe one of the purple belts is on top. We 2-on-1 him, right? And so that may leave you exposed to being outnumbered, but you play off just a little bit so that you don't get sucked in and get overwhelmed, right? And so the strategy gets to be
it feels like it can just on top of each other,
right?
The levels of strategy.
So now you understand why the nerds love this shit. It's infinitely more complex than watching a football game, because they're actually playing it.
Yeah, and I understand that.
Or even playing Madden for that matter, because you got 4 live teammates and you got 5 live opponents. I mean, you're constantly trying to outthink one another. And so
I'll give this another go.
Yeah.
Probably when I get back to Hawaii, I'm sure somebody would play League of Legends.
Yeah.
I'm sure.
So I would encourage you. So League of Legends is extremely popular.
Right.
But the hardcore,
the real ones,
they play Dota.
Dota.
Yeah.
Is that because you play Dota top?
I play Dota with my boys.
Because you're intense.
It's because I enjoy a challenge, and I like the fact that it's not made user friendly, that they've kept it hardcore. I'm a little bit of a masochist in that way. That's one of the reasons why I like jiu-jitsu, because it's difficult.
And you've got to, and then to be honest, everyone that trains jiu-jitsu is a little off, because you actively seek people who can choke you, and you want to learn from that, and you continuously come back. Continuously.
Yeah. So for me, it's because I understand that in the dojo, in the academy, in the mat room, that's not the fight.
Yeah. The
fight's somewhere out there against some opponent who may not necessarily train like I do, and I'm okay with that. Right?
Yeah.
And if someone were to grab me and I'm able to defend myself, turn the tables, hip toss his ass and scream Valhalla and then
hit an armbar.
Yeah, hit an armbar or whatever. I know that Greg would be proud. I know that John would be proud. I know that Wayne would be proud, because I've rolled with all 3 of them, and they've made me better. They got me to the point that I felt confident enough to be able to do that. And by extension, when I'm out with my boys, there's 3 martial artists there right next to my wife, and none of us are black belts, but if someone were to grab any of us, we're okay with that.
And that's actually how I started. I started because of self-defense. I don't know, did I ever tell you how I started?
Mm-mm.
So I was like 15, 16, and I was at a local hangout back home. And some guy that was in high school said I was the one that was talking trash at a high school basketball game. I said, man, I don't know you. Tried to put my hand out. I didn't know who this guy was. I was scared out of my mind. I looked to my left and he cold cocked. Boom. Just knocked me unconscious. Half of my right tooth is fake because it's chipped from that night. Lost my contact. I was black eye. I woke up to guys carrying me into one of the restaurants, called my dad. And I had always wanted to do martial arts. Always. I remember watching Bruce Lee when I was like 5, 6. I was like, I want to do that. And after that, my parents were like, well, let's get him in something to defend himself. He needs self-defense. Had never heard of jiu-jitsu. Didn't know what it was. Flipping. This was back when you used to use the yellow pages. And I was flipping through the yellow pages and I found an ad that said, Pittman's Academy of Martial Arts, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I was like, that sounds cool. I don't know what that is, but it sounds cool. Called it. Clay, the guy running it, Professor Clay, didn't answer. I left a voicemail. He called me back. And he said, hey, you want to do this jiu-jitsu thing? And I was like, yeah, well, I just want to know how much. He was like, come in for an intro. Just do an intro. He lured me in.
Yeah.
He's like, do an intro. It's free. And I was like, okay. I told my parents. And my parents went with me. My brother and my brother's girlfriend at the time went. And we did an intro. And he asked my brother to put on the gi. He's like, do you mind putting on the gi so I can show my uki, so to speak?
Yeah.
And so I remember doing the intro, and I'm like, Clay's telling me how to do this technique, and I did it, and it worked. And my brother's 6 years older than me.
Yeah.
So he's much bigger than me. And I'm like, holy shit, this worked.
Yeah.
And I remember doing a technique from the mount, and I looked up at my dad. I said, sign me up. I'm getting my black belt. And my dad was like, okay, son, slow down.
Yeah.
And I was like, no, sign me up. And the day that I did get my black belt, I tied it, and I looked at him. I was like, I told you. I told you. And he was like, you did, son? You did? And
How long did it take you from white to black?
Over 10 years, because the time that I took off and getting injured and just the time on the mat, it took me over 10 years to achieve that red bar that dreams do come true.
Yeah, I sometimes wonder if the boys will stick with it long enough to earn their black belt.
I think Enrique will.
Yeah, I think probably what will happen is at a certain point, especially when they get out from under my roof, they'll walk away from it, but it will always be there as a formative experience that they'll come back to, and heaven forbid if something were to happen to me, that it would be a way in which rolling with anybody they could reconnect with me.
Oh, definitely. And I see that when they roll with you, I see that there's that connection, that father son. I love training with the eldest Enrique, because the kid is so like nimble and flexible, and I'm telling you, he's gonna get that rubber guard down, and he's gonna go plow to someone that's twice his age. It's gonna happen, just the way he moves.
It's funny because like you can see their personalities and their styles. Enrique, he'll and maybe it's just when he grapples with me, and I don't know, but he brings you in tight. He breaks your posture, and then he starts hunting for openings, and it's very much like him, but for Vicente, he's like almost the exact opposite. and for me, having more of a top game centric approach.
That was a nice entry.
Yeah. It's almost frustrating to watch because he's okay with being on his back and playing around with his feet and controlling the hips and trying to off balance the person standing over him. And I had a conversation with John about it the other day, and he told me he said he's got the personality to develop a hell of a bottom game. And then I said, yeah, he's like, and I explained to him, my frustration with it, and he's like, he's 11, Sam, and you got to,
he's 11, Sam.
Yeah,
but he used to be on top.
Yeah. And he's like, he said, and look at his feet, and he's got big feet, and he can use that. He uses them to control his training partners, and it's funny because Enrique, when they're making fun of each other, he calls them flippers, because Vicente's got some big feet for his size. I mean, he's wearing size 6, and he's a small. Enrique's wearing 9.5. Vicente's wearing size 6, and he's like half of Enrique's size. But when you pay attention to his feet, and especially when he's got them on the other kid's hips, or he's trying to off balance them, and pulling, like he'll play spider guard and all kinds of other weird, what I consider to be wonky stuff, because I'm not comfortable with it. It's somewhat frustrating, but he seems to just gravitate towards that style, and it's very much in line with his personality. He kind of goes with the flow and looks for his openings where he can get in, but I have seen now he's starting to develop a certain level of aggression. Not in a bad way, but I guess his intensity is starting to increase. But him being smaller, he doesn't have the attributes to be able to impose his will like the way in which Enrique can. I mean, Enrique's strong.
Yeah,
and,
he is.
and I've seen it when he's rolling with full grown Marines, and then when he locks a kid up in this, that, or whatever, and then he's 15, 16 years old on the sidelines explaining what he did, what the Marine, the adult, did wrong. And I had to kind of remind him, like, hey, you're not here to teach, you're here to train, and let Professor Eric or Professor Flavio do their job, and just being mindful of the etiquette and the protocol,
right?
Somewhat, and we're kind of loose on that in some regard, but I kind of wanted to get back to that, in that there is a decorum,
Definitely,
and for me, going into a new school, I've had to, I'm always careful and cautious, and I'm observant in trying to kind of get a feel for the lay of the land. But which environment do you prefer? And then, where have you seen it kind of like be beneficial to be a deviation from that preference?
I think for the dojo, obviously there's etiquette, and it's the taking the shoes off the mat and things like that. One thing that I saw, especially in a kid's class, I think that when the kid's in the class, and I've seen parents go on the mat, and I've seen professors allow that. I'm like, what is going on? And I'm losing my mind here because this parents on the mat. It's like, this is the kid's time. Let him learn. Let him develop. That's one of the biggest things that I've seen. I think is detrimental. I don't like the parents on the mat, because the kid needs to, in my opinion, he's learning this art. It's him doing it or her doing it.
Even if they train.
If they train, then I'm talking about, these are parents that are just in civilian, socks and jeans, walking in and trying to take a picture while his daughter's doing an armbar. I'm like, hey, that's awesome, but do it from the sidelines, dude. Like, get the fuck off the mat. Because the mat is territorial to me, because to me that is a sacred ground.
Okay.
It's very sacred. And I think one thing that is great is the respect level between the belts. That definitely needs to be there, between the white belt all the way up to black belt, and respecting whoever's coaching, whether it be a brown belt or a purple belt, because there's not always a black belt around to teach.
So the way that I was first exposed to it, not necessarily so much in Monterey, because that was very informal, but in the Dominican Republic, I didn't ask as a white belt, a blue belt, if they'd care to roll. I only felt comfortable, and it was only
that's like an unspoken thing. You don't ask an upper belt to train, but if an upper belt asks you, you don't say no.
Okay.
That's kind of an unspoken thing. Some dojos do put that out there. I like that to an extent, because I think it limits you. Because you may really want to train with that brown belt, and you know what's going to happen, but you want that experience. So whenever I come into a dojo, I will tell the guys, hey, don't be afraid to ask me to roll. I want to roll with you. Trust me, I want to.
Okay.
Because rolling with white belts and rolling with lower belts, I'm actually have to be more on my game.
Why is that?
Because y'all are crazy. Because, I mean, if you think about it, if you go into a school as a white belt and you're like, yeah, dude, I tapped the black belt. I got him today. And like, I don't care who it is, you're going to say it. You're going to go back to your room or to your boys like, dude, I got him. I got him. So
I discourage that as much as possible with my boys. And I am guilty of it myself. I will be honest.
Even if you land a sweep, like,
right.
dude, I landed a sweep on John today.
Yeah.
But it's good because it cultivates, it makes me be on my game as much as it is for you, because you're going to try things that you probably wouldn't try before. Because if you land it, you land it. And if you don't, well, I'm a white belt.
Right.
So that's why.
That's one of the reasons why I love the fact that I'm still a white belt.
You're like, well, I'm just a white belt. What are you doing?
Yeah. 4-stripe white belt. That's it. I'm solid. I'm comfortable. I'm not a shark, but I'm
not make Flavio give you your blue belt.
No. I'm not ready for it, and I'm okay with that. Because for me, it's a journey.
Definitely, it's still a journey.
And I've repeated what you've said to the boys, to them, time and again. The belt only covers 2 inches of your ass. You have to cover the rest.
Yeah.
And for me, the being on the mat is its own reward, and it has for me been a very therapeutic experience, hobby, pastime, lifestyle, depending on how you view it. But there is some negative aspects to the jiu-jitsu subculture, and some of that is the politics.
Man, politics in an academy is, my opinion, poison. Because I've seen it to where you can't train with that guy. He's not on our team. He doesn't go to our academy.
Right.
It was an hour ago you told me jiu-jitsu was for everyone.
Yeah.
But no, they're not on our team. And I get it, and I understand that. But at some point, people want to train with everyone. That's it. I mean, I want to train with anyone and everyone. I brought my gi here for a reason, because they told me there was a dojo. And so I'll train with anyone. Doesn't matter to me. But the politics, I do agree with you how I've seen it in academies to where you can't train with this team, or you can't go over here, or, you owe dues, things like that. So many things come into effect, especially, even within the academy, even within the belt system or the belt, the practitioners themselves. So I definitely agree with you. That is definitely a negative side or a black eye on jiu-jitsu right now. And just because it's become so popular. And so you can YouTube jiu-jitsu right now and you'll get 1 million hits probably.
Yeah.
Or you go anywhere. I had no idea they had jiu-jitsu on Okinawa until they told me. I thought it was all karate.
That's one of the reasons why I worked with Flavio to get a solid website up and running that was English facing. Mm-hmm. www.bjjokinawa.com. And because I had a hard time finding out where I was going to train, and initially we had started on Courtney with Ivan Sakamoto, but the room was so small, and that's the problem, is that the facilities here are not perfect, and traffic being what it is, and when I had the chance to see the magnificent work of art that is the mat room here on Hanson.
It is. They told me about it, and I was like, no, there's no way the Marine Corps gave us that. I didn't believe it till I saw it.
So it's my understanding that we fumbled our way into it. It wasn't designed to be that. It was initially a basketball gym.
Well, because they've got scoreboards up.
Right. So it was initially a basketball gym, but because of the way in which the humidity and the climate control system in that building was designed, that the basketball court surface would constantly be slick
Oof.
because of the condensation
Right.
and whatnot. And so dudes were getting injured on a regular basis. So they just said, fuck it. They removed they removed the hoops and they just threw down mats and said, here, have at it. And so that we have what we have now. House of Pain North is probably the largest mat room I've ever been in my life. And I don't know if there's any standing facility that is
I've been to one
On
that was
par.
a good size in Connecticut.
that big.
Yeah.
Okay.
Is huge. He had like, it's in Manchester. Shout out Manchester BJJ. Huge mat room, and then to the left he had even more heavy bags and even more mat room.
Okay.
And as a local police officer there, he owns that and the CrossFit gym right next to it. Awesome guy, Rob.
Makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, awesome. That was one of the best academies I'd ever traveled and trained in. And if I'm ever in the East Coast, I'll definitely go back there. Met him and his brown belt, Rich. Awesome guys. But the mat room was amazing. I walked in there and I was like, why can't we have this in Hawaii? I was like, oh my God.
Yeah.
I went and grabbed my gi that day, and that's when I met Christian.
Okay. Lara.
Yeah, because I didn't.
El Capitan.
Yeah, I thought he was a staff sergeant. He was. We talked about this too. He was hanging out. We were hanging out with him. I was like, dude, I thought you were like a gunny or staff sergeant. He was like, yeah, I'm under the radar. I was like, you're on the other side. But that's when I told him, I was like, hey, I want to train with y'all. And the first thing, what belt are you? And I'm kind of hesitant to say it. Because,
Why?
Well, because it's always, why am I hesitant to ask you that?
Yeah.
Well,
Because it immediately like changes the tone of the conversation.
Immediately, everything gets changed. I was like, I'm black belt. Oh, really? And if they don't know me, even Flavio had the same look. He was like, is this dude really? And Michael.
So explain to me that. How does so you come here, you show up, Flavio's the instructor here on Hanson. Mm-hmm. How's that conversation go?
So, and Flavio with this very delicate voice.
Yeah.
He's I told him, say, hey, I'm here for 6 months. I trained in Texas. I am a black belt under Clay Pittman. And usually what I do is I give the lineage.
Yeah. You have to, right?
Yeah, it's kind of like, here's my creds. Here's my street cred. Mm-hmm. It's like, I'm black belted under Clay Pittman. Carlos Machado, Royce Gracie's cousin. All 5 of the Machado brothers are black belts. That too black belted Clay Pittman.
Okay.
And then usually when I get to Carlos, they're just like, all right, cool. Because most people know Carlos. He was on Walker, Texas Ranger, by the way. All 5 brothers were on Walker, Texas Ranger. But anyways, so I told him, I was like, hey, I want to train. I'm here for 6 months. I brought my gi. I would like to step on the mat with you, or with your team, so to speak, not with you specifically. He said, okay, we'll come. So I showed up, we did warm-ups, did technique, and I could see the guys just like looking at me like, who is this dude? Like,
Yeah.
This guy just shows up. Because I look relatively young, I like to think. So none of them really believed me. Mike didn't believe me. Michael Brown.
Okay.
He didn't believe. He's like, whatever. And I think Wayne was kind of skeptical too, and so was John, which I get because they've been here for a while. And then Flavio was like, we started free rolling, and Flavio was like, Reno, grab me. I was like, here you go.
Yeah.
So we rolled.
Is your heart racing?
Was mine?
Yeah.
A little bit, but I was excited because another black belt. Yeah, and I was like, I could tell this guy's got voodoo magic the way he moves his hips. I was like, this is gonna be intense. And we had, that was an intense 5 minutes. We were all over the mat. And
everybody's got to get out of the way.
Yeah, it literally what happened.
Going back to etiquette and mat room decorum.
Yes.
The younger belts or the lower belts get the fuck out of the way.
Yeah.
The big dogs are rolling.
And that's what happened. If we bump into a lower belt, then the lower belt moves. Well, that day when me and Flavio trained, people stopped and like started watching us. And
yeah, of course they did.
And I was like, all right, appreciate that. And so 5 minutes just through hell. And then afterwards, after I trained with everyone.
How'd you do?
Against Flavio? I didn't submit him. He didn't submit me. We have submitted each other though.
Yeah.
That day we didn't. And he, after I trained with everyone and Flavio, he pulled me aside. He was like, yeah, you can train with us. I was like, okay, I appreciate it. And he's like, just help me teach. Okay. He's like, that's up. Just Just do that. Got you. So that's when I would take over the Wednesday class, or
Right.
Or even on Monday, sometimes giving a little more in-depth explanation because his English isn't that well,
Right.
that good. Well, I don't even know. My English isn't that good. Shit. But give him just a more in-depth explanations on why he does what he does, because he'll do stuff.
Yes.
And people just are like, "What the hell just happened?"
Yes.
I'm like, "Okay, guys, here's what happened."
Yes.
Because he definitely puts his foot in a hook, and then next you know the guy's in an armbar and he's just laughing.
Yep. It is voodoo to watch him work, and he reminds me in a lot of ways of our instructor, our professor in San Antonio, Sergio Correa Maja, and I think he's 5th degree black belt now. Close friends with Hoyler. I mean, I'm talking like close friends with Hoyler, but he interestingly came up under Strauss.
Dan Strauss.
No, Strauss. I'm gonna fuck this up, and when I'm next in San Antonio, he's gonna want to kick my ass. But he's got a definitely he's a small guy. He's like he's like John size.
No.
But when you roll with him, man, it reminds me of the way that Jocko described rolling with Hickson.
I didn't hear about that.
Yeah, so there's I can't think of what episode of the podcast it was, and I'm sure somebody right now is screaming out, "It's episode 38, dumbass," or whatever. But I'm a regular listener to Jocko, but I'm not there at the minute of release like some guys are. But he describes it like a fire hydrant that's been opened and turned on just full blast, right? And the way the water, which it comes out, just this overwhelming force. If you put your hand up against it and you try to maneuver your hand within that jet stream, and the way in which the water would just overwhelm,
smother you.
just overwhelm your hand. And if you take that concept or that sensation, but then you slow it down. That's what it was like to roll with Hicks and Gracie. And I think that when he said when he rolled with them, he may not have been a black belt at the time, but I mean Jocko was training.
He's been training forever
with Dean Lister, who's probably one of the highest level.
He's one of the best no-gi world grapplers.
Yeah.
Grapplers in the world. No-gi. I definitely, I try to do the whole be like water when I train. Water, know when to be the water, know when to be the stone. I think that's the mentality I try to take to that and try to open up my game a little bit. But I do like I like the boa constrictor. Just the more you move and the tighter it gets, the tighter it gets, the tighter it gets, the tighter it gets. I think that's what I try to emulate as far as my game is concerned, especially with the triangle. I love the triangle.
So Maja's under Paulo Mauricio Strauss, who trained under Hilson before starting his own academy in 1884. And this was in Copacabana.
Nice.
That's him.
Yeah, he just looks like he's got a death grip. He gets hold of that collar. He just looks like when you get that collar, you're just not going anywhere but getting swept and collar choked.
Yeah. But yeah, rolling with Maja reminds me of Flavio. I rolled a lot with Maja. The boys had been going there for a lot longer than I had been. I mean, I'd go and I'd watch the class, but I didn't have the time because of the job, at least initially. Because when I was doing that onboarding process, I came in. I'm taking, I've got a section of 100 personnel, and we're doing 24/7 ops, and it was an intense education for me, snapping in that billet, and I didn't feel confident enough to be able to manage training
Right.
and everything else all at once. But once I kind of got my rhythm down at work, then I was able to kind of work my way in onto the mats and train. And we really kind of lucked out.
With him,
with finding him. But, for me, to see black belts roll is live, right? I mean, you could watch it on video, and that's one thing. But when you've rolled with those black belts and you see those black belts roll with each other, it's another matter entirely. And that's one of the reasons why I love open mat Saturdays at WKO, is because you get guys that come up from Kinzer, you get guys that come in from the Ginawan Community Center, the guys that train there at WKO at all times, and then the guys that come out from Hanson.
Hanson Hit Squad.
Yeah, Hanson Hit Squad. And, the first Saturday that I was there at WKO, I was rolling with, I think, Flavio's brother-in-law, who speaks Portuguese. I was speaking to him in Spanish. There was English. There was Japanese on the mat. And it really brought to mind full circle, that this is definitely a global phenomenon and activity, community, and it really made me appreciate the unique aspect of the sport, the hobby, the pastime, the martial art, and
there's a universal language there.
Yeah,
because everyone knows what it feels like to get choked.
Because the human anatomy is a human anatomy.
Yeah,
and you got two human anatomies,
meshing together,
and the infinite possibilities that they can. It's a search for truth.
Oh, that's what I think that's what one of the things that I have a picture on my Instagram of me and Flavio training, and I love jiu-jitsu because it could be so, it is gentle art, but at the same time it's ferocious and animalistic, and I think that's one of the reasons I do, because I can let everything out there. I can get back to my animalistic roots, I like to say. But you want self-truth, you want reality, get on the mat. You'll find out a lot about yourself. And I think that is the biggest thing that it's done for me. It's revealed a lot to me, and I've gained so much from it. And especially like you said, the open mat on Saturdays. I love training with all the guys, especially all the different rinks. I mean, because you could go there I've left there at 3:00 before and got there at 1. I was like, we've been here for 3 hours, 3 hours, man. And I was like, oh, well, we gotta go. And that was the only time. That's the only time I take the green line anywhere on Okinawa is to go train, because I don't care about it. It's fine. I'll get the van or get the guys to drive me somewhere, but I definitely take the green line. Saturdays are for coffee and jiu-jitsu. It's been my thing here recently. I've been going with that for a while. So,
but it's funny because it brings me back to another point, and you mentioned that you kind of hide your moat.
Yeah, I do.
And then you also kind of have a tendency to want to hide your black belt.
I don't want to come off overly proud and arrogant, I guess.
Okay.
I think that's what that is. But once I don't talk about it, but once you ask me something, then you better sit down for 3 hours, because I could talk about jiu-jitsu for a lifetime. It's like, well, how long do you have?
At that point in time, that's why hide it? Yeah,
at that point, it's like, okay, well, here's what it is, and here's everything. And you haven't met jiu-jitsu, our Lord and Savior. Sit down and let me talk to you for a second. And I think that's what it is. I think I try not to come off overly arrogant or arrogant at all, too prideful, because I've been tapped more than anyone. I think I've been armbarred more times than I like to count. So I think that's why I do that. I think that's why I kind of don't open up about it as quickly, as probably as I should, I guess, so to speak. Jiu-jitsu, I'm more open about that, because it's gotten so popular now, especially within the Marines, because of the McMac program. So there's jiu-jitsu involved with that. So I've been able to help with the McMap classes and show some ground skills and refine it a little bit.
So let me ask you about that. What about the McMap program, if anything, would you change?
Would I change? I don't think I would change much because I know what it's made for. I understand what the reasoning for McMap. It's to subdue your enemy and to kill him. That's what it's there for. And so if at some point I don't have my rifle or my sidearm and we're in hand-to-hand combat, something has gone terribly wrong. Yes. And I need to get away from him, kill him, and then get back to find my guys, find my unit. So I understand the reasoning for McMap and the reasoning for it. I guess the only thing I would change is some of the techniques can be a little bit smoother and a little bit, the way you break guard in McMap. That's what I would change. Just driving your elbows into my thighs is just gonna get you choked.
So what's the appropriate way without being able to demonstrate here? How would you describe it?
Control the hips. Plant the hips. Control the hips. One knee in the tailbone.
Bear in mind, he's going through the motions because he can't just talk about it.
I can't. I was actually grabbing imaginary hips. Knee in, hip out, turn, and now keep your elbows in, but don't grind, and just keep your elbows in. And as you move your hip, turn your hip out, the legs will pop, bring that knee in, and go to side control, and go to work, find a submission. I think that's one thing that I would change because they just sit there and they just drive their elbows into the thighs, and I'm like, you didn't move my hip at all. Nah, you just made me angry. That's all you did. But I think that would be the only thing that I would change because, like I said, I know what it's intended for, and it is effective. It really is. So, but I enjoy combatives as a whole. So that's why I really liked the McMap program for what it is. I understand that. And then you want to talk offline about jiu-jitsu? Yeah, let's go to the mat. And I think we've actually gotten students that way up here at Hanson. They see us training, and they'll come right over from the mat, and I'm like, just wear your uniform, because that gives me a collar. Wear your uniform until you get a gi. You need to get a gi, though, because this is a gi class. So that kind of bothers me a little bit when guys show up. It's like, oh, I just want to do no gi. Well, this isn't a no gi class. We can do no gi later, but this is a gi class.
And what's the difference in your opinion?
In the two?
Yeah.
I think gi's harder because there's so much more to grab, so much more to use. I have so many more techniques. I can wrap your arm up with your own gi, wrap your arm up with your belt. I can collar choke you. But I think in no gi, I think your technique on very certain moves have to be spot on because athleticism and a guy with a sweaty arm or a wrestler is going to be very effective in no-gi. So your game specific techniques have to be, your submissions have to be on point. But I can control you no-gi, but the submissions have to be on point. Because in a gi, you can shoot for an arm bar and the guy kind of slips, but you just grab the sleeve and you put him back, you adjust it back in. You can't do that in no-gi. That's why your submissions have to be on point. But I appreciate both. I'm more of a gi guy just because that's what I came up in. I've always worn that. Black gi was I bought Jocko's black Get After It gi. First black gi I've ever bought. Sorry. But I appreciate both, and I'm opening up more to no-gi, a lot more willing to do that because Michael Hill, I just left. He was all about no-gi and those heel hooks.
Yeah.
All about.
I used to love rolling with Mike.
Eddie Cummings Jr. right there.
Yeah.
That guy. So
we would whisper sweet nothings to each other when we were rolling. Like, I missed you, Mike. It's been too long. It's like, I missed you too, Sam. And he used to say shit like, tough old bastard to me. 'Cause he'd lock me up, but he wouldn't have me perfect in some arm triangle or whatever. And I'd pop out and we'd keep grinding.
I realized that when the first time I rode with you, I had you, I think it was a triangle. I had you in something. And I was like, all right, Top, you should, all right, this man's really going to make me, okay. And so, but I mean, the technique's tighter now though.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying about?
And it goes back to that search for truth, right?
Yeah,
And
it's tighter.
And I will hit you with this before I press mute. But
Okay.
the unexamined life is not worth living.
Amen.
And with that, we're out.